What's up, my comic comrades? At the end of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, we were given two big reveals, with the first being the introduction of the Council of Kangs into the MCU, which we'll be doing an episode on in the next few weeks. And the second being a look at a version of Kang named Victor Timely, who will be a major part of Loki Season 2. This is one of Kang's lesser-known aliases, but it is incredibly important to his overall mythology. So today we're going to tell you everything you need to know about Victor Timely just before Loki Season 2 gets underway. It's actually really cool that the MCU is exploring this version of Kang because Victor Timely appears in the early 1900s during the Second Industrial Revolution, a time where everything from the light bulb to the telephone to the automobile were invented, making it one of the most dynamic and interesting periods in human history and the perfect era to roll out a villain's plot. Also, in the last episode, we mentioned that we are going to be dropping some new Villains Month merch in the coming weeks, so make sure to be watching for those announcements. But fall has already begun, so it's time to hook yourself up with a dope hoodie from Variant Labs. You can find a ton of great options and colors on the VariantComics.com shop or in the merch shelf below. And as always, all new Variant merch is created with our friends over at Printful, today's sponsor. If you're a fellow content creator, the holiday season is easily the busiest and potentially the most profitable time of the year for many of our businesses, including yours. If you're not creating your own merch, it's a great way to connect with your community while adding a new revenue stream to help create better content. And between Halloween, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and Christmas, it's the best time to feed your creativity with some extra cheddar, so you can keep doing what you love. Thanks to Printful, we're stocking our new Variant Labs merch shop at VariantComics.com and our merch shelf here on YouTube, with a bunch of great apparel and other branded items for the Variant Nation, with a ton more on the way. And we're doing it without the stress of stocking inventory, shipping out products every day, etc. Because Printful takes all that time-consuming busyness away by being your one-stop shop for print on demand with global fulfillment. All you have to do is upload a design, set up your YouTube merch shelf, and bam, you're getting your swag to the world. The quality of the products is second to none, it's risk-free, and Printful provides quick fulfillment in 2 to 5 days. They also have no order minimums and competitive shipping rates, so bring your own merch ideas to life. Start a print-on-demand store for your brand with Printful without inventory risk and no upfront investment. Just click the link in our description. All right, Victor Timely's origin is laid out for us in Avengers Annual Issue 21 in the story within the issue called Kang the Puzzle. We see Princess Ravonna saying, "The rule of Kang is over. Now he lies suspended between life and death. His empire is now mine. I am Princess Ravonna, but my victory is hollow. I have only his own chronicles of his life. For days I have sat watching them, and I am no closer to solving the enigma of Kang than I was before." She continues to say, "While watching several versions of Kang through a monitor, I knew that time travel diverges duplicates of oneself in other timelines. But still, it's a shock to see the other Ravonna in Kang's chronicle. She is so innocent, so trusting, like the woman I used to be. But instead of Kang, she chooses Immortus, the fool who claims to be Kang's future self, reaching a change in Kang that chills me to hear. We then hear Kang say, 'I'm Kang the Conqueror, and from this day forth, I know only hatred.' Soon after, I left Immortus. A new threat came to my attention. From afar, I saw a woman calling herself Kang Nebula confront one of my counterparts, teleporting him into the midst of my council of cross-time Kangs to be recruited as a new member. But my mind was on other concerns then. Ravonna then says, 'Robot, stop the recording. I was Kang Nebula. I joined the council to destroy it, but I never learned which member was the true Kang. You are a keeper of Kang's records. Tell me.' The robot says, 'Yes, mistress. None of them was my master.' She asks, 'But then, how did the council come about?' The robot says, 'You know Master Kang executed his incompetent temporal counterparts. He replaced them with robots to rule the timelines for him. Other Kang counterparts, however, met death and defeat in the course of their attempts to conquest at the hands of foes, both human and alien. And the victors often adopted the fearsome guise of Kang for themselves, as we see an alien put on the armor of Kang.' The robot continues, 'The true Kang organized his surviving counterparts, and the slayers of the others into a council to govern all realities in his empire. Only the council leaders knew of the true Kang's existence. How he bent them to his will, I do not know. Thus, mistress, when you sought a power source in a time bubble in the future, none of the Kangs who followed you there was the prime Kang. Not their leader, nor even the Kang who became trapped in the time stream and unleashed the growing man against Earth's heroes.' Princess Ravonna asked, 'Then what concerned my Kang during all of this?' The robot replies, 'You, mistress. Let me resume playing the Master's Chronicle.' As he does, we see Kang say, 'I cannot expel Ravonna from my thoughts, so I gathered other loners from other timelines. But not even the most compliant of them could satisfy me. They were not the Ravonna from my past. I slowly ceased to care about her. But then there was Mantis, the first woman who betrayed me. I sought to make her pay for my agony, but the Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer came to her defense. My revenge was not worth the effort it would take. Sick of women, I've returned her to Chronopolis. Ravonna then asks the robot, when did Kang build Chronopolis? And the answer is where we finally get the origin of Victor Timely. He answers it was after he first battled the Avengers. Retreating from the Avengers, Kang realized he could not defeat them as easily as he had hoped. The robot continues to say, indeed, he wanted a place from which he could design the Sentry to his liking. He literally wanted to build the 616 timeline from scratch so that he could set things in place to control it later. The only way he could do this was to travel back in time to January 1, 1901, where he hovered over a wooded area in the state of Wisconsin. He then took on a new persona, calling himself Victor Timely. As Victor Timely, he became a brilliant inventor and industrialist, rivaling Henry Ford and Thomas Edison. Unlike them, he built factories, founded the town of Timely, and became its first mayor. As Victor Timely, he introduced basic principles of robotics and computer science to his staff. He also oversaw their work developing primitive robotics, and every so often introduced a new advance in the field. Essentially, little by little, he would inject his future tech so that he could be ahead of the curve and start introducing innovation slowly to always be number one and in charge of shaping the world's tech. And it was a brilliant plan. No one suspected Timely was from the future, nor that by stepping through a door, he could enter his great palace of Chronopolis in his true identity as Kang Prime. From here, he could supervise his conquest through time undisturbed. For a while, Chronopolis existed in the same space as Timely, Wisconsin, just out of phase with it in the time stream. That's why no one on Earth could detect its presence. Moreover, Chronopolis served as a crossroads into Earth's past and future eras, while the palace and its inhabitants were unaffected by the passage of time or by temporal divergence. While the Master was otherwise occupied, he left robot doubles to play the role of Mayor Timely. Kang did not age. He made sure that Timely appeared to grow older as decades passed and finally died. But Kang had everything planned out, so he would take on the new guise of Victor Timely Jr. and recruit Dr. Phineas T. Horton to Timely Industries in 1929. Kang knew exactly what Horton would do with what he learned at Timely, and by 1939, Horton had left Timely and used his innovation to construct the first android, the original Human Torch. That's right, friends, meaning it was Kang the Conqueror who was indirectly responsible for the first superpowered hero of the century in Marvel Comics. And thus the Age of Heroes was born and Kang's new obsession began. Then by the 1980s, Kang assumed the guise of Victor Timely III, and during that period, Timely Industries became one of the principal suppliers of computer and robotic tech to the world. The robot continues to say Timely computer chips and other devices can be found in virtually every computer on Earth, along with most advanced cybernetic system computers, including those that were used by Franklin Richards, and robotics that help make human cyborg robots like Deathlock, all of which are loyal to Kang and will, on his command, turn against their owners. And as you would imagine, all of that played a part in Kang's plan to conquer Earth at the end of the 20th century. The big twist is, while Ravonna was talking to the robot, that wasn't the real robot. It was an illusion created by the real Kang, who reveals himself at the end and says, "This is my story, Ravonna," or as it might be called, the true life story of Kang the Conqueror. But that is only one part. There are still many timelines, many universes, and my story isn't over. I am the Lord of Time. There is no beginning and there is no end. There is only me. Now, what will you do knowing this? She says, "I will use this information to destroy you." He replies, "I'd like to see you try." And with that, our chapter ends, along with our look at the origin of Victor Timely, the mysterious early 20th century Kang the Conqueror. But now, with all that knowledge, it's pretty easy to see what the MCU could be doing with Victor Timely. If it's anything like what we just went over, how he is in the comic books, they'll be setting up Victor Timely so we could see how Kang is able to interface and conquer the 20th century so easily. Because Kang selling himself as industrialist Victor Timely will be shown to have put all of his tech and plans in place in the early 1900s, playing the long game for his inevitable conquest of the 616 timeline. Needless to say, that would be a really cool story for them to explore in Loki, and judging solely by what we've seen so far, it seems likely that we're at least gonna get something along those lines. They could very well take a bunch of liberties with the Victor Timely character, but it doesn't make much sense to introduce this version of Kang unless you plan to use at least a version of the character's sole purpose in comics. Especially because this is the Kang story that explains how he would have a good chance of defeating Earth's heroes and taking control of the timeline. But now it's your turn to sound off. Do you like this version of Kang, and do you think the MCU will stick closely to the comics in Loki Season 2? Let us know in the comments. Otherwise, we'll see you next time when I talk about all things comics.